So, welcome everyone. I'm really glad to have a full house for this session. Today we're going to discuss the growing smart cities ecosystem across low and middle income countries and the role of mobile operators and startups in that ecosystem. Cities across low and middle income countries are growing at an unprecedented rate. Africa and Asia alone will account for 90% of urban growth from now until 2050. On the African continent alone, there'll be 1 more billion people added to cities from now until 2050. With declining voice and data revenues for mobile operators, there's also an urgent need for operators to rethink how they're going to grow their revenue base from now until 2050 as well. Smart cities as an ecosystem represent a really interesting market opportunity for mobile operators to expand their revenue base. Since a lot of cities in low and middle income countries are struggling with the unprecedented rate of urbanization and municipalities and service delivery models are under pressure, there's a real need to look for innovative models that can deliver for these cities. Mobile operators have some of these solutions. Startups also offer a range of innovative solutions that can support cities and utility service providers to provide more services and to do so more effectively in the future. Today I'll be providing a brief presentation highlighting some early insights from a research project we conducted within the GSMA on the role of mobile operators in the smart cities ecosystem in low and middle income countries. Then I'll be joined by an amazing panel from leaders from both the mobile operator and startup ecosystem from across African and Asian countries. And then we'll have another panel looking at the role that regulators and governments are playing in governing the smart cities ecosystem in low and middle income countries, and how we can also safeguard citizens against some of the risks associated with disruptive innovation. Now, a very brief overview of what we do within the GSMA Mobile for Development program and the GSMA Digital Utilities program more specifically. So you'll know the GSMA since you're here at Mobile World Congress, but the GSMA Mobile for Development program leverages digital innovation to drive different sustainable development goals. We're supported by our members, the mobile industry, but also by a range of different donor organizations, especially for our program, the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office, FCDO. In Mobile for Development, we have teams looking at a range of different development challenges like humanitarian innovation, agri-tech, climate tech, digital inclusion, mobile money. The Digital Utilities program that I'm part of supports urban resilience in low and middle income countries by enabling access to essential utility services, so digital solutions and innovative partnerships. We really think that inclusive access to utility services such as energy, water, sanitation, waste management, and increasingly also transport is critical for cities to withstand the pressures from population growth, climate change, as well as widening inequalities. The way we work is we facilitate grant funding to innovators through our GSMA Innovation Fund. This is a key part of our work, and I'll touch on that briefly afterwards. We also do a lot of research and insights to better understand the developmental and commercial impact of some of the innovations that we support, as well as what we see in the broader ecosystem. Thirdly, we also do a lot of partnership facilitation, so we support startups in low and middle income countries to build partnerships with mobile operators. But increasingly, we're also looking at other strategic partnerships such as startup corporate partnerships or partnerships between governments and startups as well. Finally, the last pillar of our work is technical advice. So we provide a lot of advice and expertise to municipalities, utility service providers, and also startups on how to integrate different digital innovations. That can be a very basic use case, like if I'm a service provider, how do I actually get my customer base to take up digital payments? How do I overcome some of the product design or affordability barriers that may prevent people from leveraging digital payments, to more sophisticated use cases such as AI or IoT as well. Just a couple of highlights from our GSMA Innovation Fund. We provide funding to a range of different use cases. So we've dispersed around £26 million to over 130 organizations over the course of the Innovation Fund. The innovations that we've supported have impacted over 65 million people. And what's quite exciting for us is they've raised over £670 million in follow-on funding. So what's key for us is that the innovation fund, it's not just a grant project that then just ends, but that it continues to raise follow-on funding and actually becomes a commercially sustainable delivery model that keeps attracting private investment. So we're quite proud of that figure in particular. And then finally, we've also been able to build 108 partnerships between mobile operators and the startups that we supported through the Innovation Fund. Now, some sneak peeks, insights from our study on smart cities that will likely be published in May, kind of giving you an idea what the market opportunity for smart city solutions looks like in low and middle income countries. So the first thing to kind of understand here, appreciate here is the IoT layers that mobile operators can get involved in when it comes to smart city solutions. And what do I mean by smart city solutions? The term always gets thrown around, but let's demystify it a bit. So this could, for instance, mean a smart metering project for an energy utility. And in those projects, there are different values that you can derive from the project. There's the application layer, there's the connectivity layer, and then there's the device layer. And each of those layers have different value chains and different economic opportunities associated with it for mobile operators. If I now look at the revenue projections from our study, you'll see what's not so important right now is the level that the revenues are in right now. You can see for some regions they're still quite low. But if you look at the compound annual growth rate for the revenue projections in the smart cities solutions ecosystem, you'll see that for a region like Sub-Saharan Africa, the compound annual growth rate is 21%. For South Asia, where these solutions are already much more advanced and digitalization generally is already at a higher level, especially when it comes to smart city solutions, you see a 33% compound annual growth rate. And this is obviously also due to the fact that, for instance, in India, the Indian government has this huge smart cities mission that invests heavily in these solutions, and it also has clear targets, for instance, for energy utilities to implement a number of smart meters until 2030, which is why the growth is more accentuated there. Now, let's break this revenue down a bit into different layers. And what you'll see is that actually the connectivity layer is clearly the smallest piece of the pie. What's far more important is the platform layer. And this is also where you see the highest compound annual growth rate from now until 2030. So this is just an important lesson for mobile operators as they transition from being just a connectivity provider to being a value-added service provider. A lot of the economic opportunities actually at the platform layer. And you'll see this is similar across other markets. There are some regional differences between like Pakistan and Malaysia. Malaysia has a bit of a higher connectivity share than Pakistan, but the picture holds everywhere. And especially in African countries like Nigeria and Kenya, we see the platform layer being particularly important. Now, if you look at the evolution of the role of mobile operators in the smart cities ecosystem, if you look from 2010, that was the kind of connectivity-centric period, to now, in the present time, and especially up until 2030, mobile operators increasingly are becoming turnkey solution providers that are going beyond just connectivity providers and are developing real smart city platforms. And we'll hear a bit more about this, obviously, in the panel discussions as well. So I don't want to go too deep into that, but the panels will reveal that transition and also how mobile operators are thinking about this transition going forward in their future strategy. Now, just highlighting one example of Celcom Digi in Malaysia and their smart city project in Hulu Kelang. What's quite interesting about this project that it really illustrates this turnkey solution provider business model where an operator is providing value at the infrastructure layer, at the innovation layer, as well as at the governance layer. That obviously requires a lot of sophistication on the level of the mobile operator. You need to have a strong government relations team. You need to have a strong data analysis, AI and IoT team. But this is what you can do if you want to engage in these growing opportunities. And Malaysia obviously is another country where the government has set clear targets for multiple cities to become smart cities from now until 2050, and it's obviously actively looking for a technology partner to help it deliver on its vision, which is why it's exciting that operators like Celcom Digi are positioning themselves to do so. Now, I won't go too deep into this because the panels will discuss this a bit more, but just to obviously highlight some of the challenges involved with getting involved in the smart cities ecosystem as a mobile operator. I think one is that it usually requires quite a high upfront investment on the part of the operator, and the return on investment isn't immediate. So you really have to take a long-term view, and as sometimes operators can be a bit short-termist and driven by short-term shareholder value maximization, this long-termism can be a challenge. Another one is governance uncertainty, right? We all know that some governments might announce some exciting smart city projects and certain partnerships, but when governments change, do those plans also change? How does that impact existing contracts? So governance and regulatory uncertainty, I think, is another key barrier. There's some others that I could go into, but we will, as I mentioned, publish an extensive report on the matter. I just end by saying that in order to overcome these, mobile operators really need to strategically look at the smart cities smart cities opportunity and integrate it into their future strategies. So operators are already building a lot of sophistication on AI and IoT. I think another area where that sophistication needs to be built is also in terms of governance relations, being able to negotiate with local governments to have favorable terms. But it's definitely an area that a lot of operators across Africa and Asia that we interviewed from the study are investing heavily in, especially in middle-income countries like South Africa in the African context, as well as India and Malaysia in the Asia region. So now I would like to stop talking myself and hand over to the experts that are going to demystify the smart cities concept even more and talk a bit more about how mobile operators and startups are actively involved in the ecosystem. So moderating this panel will be Akanksha Sharma, who is the head of our climate tech and digital utilities programs at the GSMA. She'll be joined by Amy Robinson, head of digital at Basigo, a Kenyan startup. Also joining them will be Fred Waithaka, who is the Chief Corporate Affairs Officer at Safaricom, and last but not least, Abhishek Biswal, who is the Chief Business Officer at Airtel. Over to you, Akanksha.
Am I audible? Awesome. Thank you, George. And I saw that presentation for the first time, so some very exciting stats that have come through. Also, thanks to the GSMA intelligence team who've inputted into the research piece. Kenisha is standing at the back. Is one of the authors of the report. I am glad to have this amazing panel with me today. As I think George was talking about, cities are a complex organism, if we can put it that way. They are powerhouses of human progress, achievements. That's the epicenters where all of this happens. And when you throw in the phrase smart cities, you're essentially talking about entirety of that system to somehow become more efficient, smarter, more productive, perhaps. And that is not something easy to achieve, because not only are you thinking about a systems change, but the individual components of that system need to evolve in parallel and in tandem with the systemic change. Very, very complex. And then you have the different layers of stakeholders that you're dealing with, governance, structures that keep changing. There is potentially a government that launches a new program 5 years later, 3 years later, suddenly gets stopped. There's private sector involved, and they're like waiting for what to do. And several, in today's world, several macroeconomic changes that affect cities as well. So it's a very, very complex topic to indulge in. So I congratulate you, first of all, in the fact that you are taking on the challenge. But I think I'll start with you, Amy, because it'd be good to kind of start with a sector, a particular innovation that Basigo has decided to tackle. So tell us more about the innovation and the fun bits, and then we'll get into the difficult bits a little later.
Yeah, no problem. Great. Well, thanks for having us, and yeah, thanks for inviting Basigo to attend here. So what are we doing? Our core product is an electric bus, and we are providing that on a pay-as-you-drive basis. So you pay per kilometer that you drive. So we work with existing bus operators within Kenya and Rwanda. They pay a deposit of around $8,000 for the bus, and then they pay 50 cents per kilometer. For that, we give them the bus to use, and we provide the charging infrastructure. So we're setting up charging infrastructure in conjunction with, government entities, KPLC, the Kenyan power providers. So we're setting that up across Nairobi and across Kigali in Rwanda. And then we also provide the service and maintenance for the vehicles, as there is not so much experience already for electric vehicles. And then, our story so far. So we started in 2021, and then we had the first bus on the ground February 23 in Kenya. Then we started operations in Rwanda at the end of 2023. So we ended 2023 with 17 buses in Kenya and 6 in Rwanda. And then at the end of last year, we were up to 49 buses in total across the fleet. So yeah, we've seen a huge interest. We have a waiting list of around 900 just in Kenya alone. And in Rwanda, we're working very closely with the government there, as the mobility sector is highly, controlled, regulated. And so there's a big opportunity for just transitioning buses to electric as the diesel buses, start to get off the roads. So that's on the kind of core offering side. And then in addition to that, we're doing digital fare collection. So this is really where we're working very closely with Safaricom and really trying to formalize and digitize really one of the kind of last bastions of cash industries in Africa. There's a lot of people moving around the city every day, and they're still paying cash. And this is really one of the largest individual sectors that hasn't really been digitized yet in Kenya. And there's a big opportunity to make it easier for passengers, make it safer, make it more predictable, and really gain those insights into the industry so that we can start to evolve it and revolutionize it and be truly smart.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And how has this partnership been with the digital providers as you've gone along? How has that journey been?
Yeah, I think right now we're kind of just benefiting from existing infrastructure. You still have to do a lot of behavior change, maybe more so with the operators than the passengers. Passengers, people if you don't know, if you haven't been, people in Kenya in particular, there's a high adoption for digital payments. It was really the start of all of the digital payment services in Africa, and Safaricom led that charge. So the passengers are using it, they know how to use it, they're engaged. For the operators, this is an industry that has been running for a long time by the same people, and they haven't really had to challenge their ways of working so much. So that's really the big challenge that we see. So we're working with Safaricom on figuring out, how do we provide different tools that the bus operators find valuable, that they are encouraged then to adopt these kind of digital fare collection methods.
Got it. Yeah, it's often, cash brings with it the safety challenge, and that is one driver often for some of these industries where they're like, okay, let's go cashless, safer modes of transferring money, but at the same time, there is a secondary economy that runs, which gets impacted. But let's move on to you, Fred. Safaricom was just named as a supporter of Basigo. Besides transport, or including transport, what are some of the smart cities projects that Safaricom is supporting?
Thanks for that. So I think I'll just kick off first from where Amy left off. So we are a strong part of our community. Safaricom's purpose is to transform lives. And everything that we do is geared towards delivering that outcome. So when M-Pesa came to life, the purpose of M-Pesa was to solve a simple problem that we have in Kenya, or had before we came to life, which was moving money from the cities to the rural homes. So what would happen is that in the past, if I'm sending money back home, I would go to a bus driver, put the money in an envelope, and then hand it to them. And then when they get home, my family would then turn up at a given hour and collect the money. So bus drivers were really mobile banks of back then. So what Safaricom did is, through the power of the mobile phone, to allow for the more flow of money across the entire networked community. And money now moves, digital money moves freely across the entire country. So Safaricom is the largest mobile money provider in Kenya. We have over 30 million customers on M-Pesa. 90% of all mobile money transactions flow through our platforms. And then across Africa, we have over 100 million customers. So that provides that rich ecosystem that we have continued to build on to drive various payment opportunities for transport, in agriculture, in education, and various other sectors. So what else are we doing to drive smart cities? So for us, we reflect on it from smart communities. Again, reflecting back on the challenges that we have in Kenya. The cities, of course, like in all other countries, develop to bring together commerce and other trade. But within those cities, we also have various informal communities that do end up setting up. So what have we done? So the various solutions that we deploy take into consideration the formal and the informal communities. So on the formal side, working with the various county governments, for example, in water, to deploy smart water meters, which have helped reduce water wastage, helping also the counties to increase their revenue collection, which then in turn gets applied in various services. On the informal side, deploying various IoT solutions and wearables, helping those communities to be able to access water at affordable pricing using M-Pesa as a payment platform. On the education side, also working with various partners on a food program where we call it Food to Eat. So where the kids in the informal settlements, again using wearables and IoT platforms, are able to pay for their food using M-Pesa simply on a tap-to-pay basis. And their parents are able to get a message notifying them that the kid has accessed their meal for that day. If they don't get a report back, then they're able to check with their kids, why didn't you eat? What was the reason? So again, for us, SMART just extends to that. Also in the agricultural space, we are deploying an fertilizer program, which is allowing the government to distribute fertilizers, particularly to the low, small-scale farmers at affordable prices, allowing them to track that the exact, the person who's entitled to the fertilizer is the one that gets it at the affordable rate, ensuring then at a smallholder level, we're able to boost agriculture. And there are also various other products that we have from our smart solutions in all those verticals as well. Again, as I mentioned, the outcome of all that is to transform the lives of our various Kenyans.
Thank you, Fred. Yes, I mean, we've at the GSMA Innovation Fund also supported a few of those startups and solutions. One of them, which is my favorite, is City Taps, where we went into this organization is essentially working with informal settlements, a house with like 4 or 5 families sharing the same tap. Piped water, and then you're using pay-as-you-go modes to kind of split the bills without fighting with each other, that you drew more or you drew less. Very, very innovative, where you're like kind of taking the utility water through to the last endpoint, and you're able to split it digitally and safely, securely, and efficiently. So thanks for that. Abhishek, on to you now. Similar questions. Any like pet projects, things that you're proud of as Airtel, where you've supported smart city solutions? India has been a fantastic market for that anyway.
Thank you for having me. I think building on to what Fred said, right? If I look at India, one of the most prominent use cases or prominent installations of smart city is the smart utility project, right, where we are digitizing close to 250 million meters across the country for energy. And two challenges, right? One is the sheer scale of 250 million meters spread over 4,000 kilometers of stretch in any one direction. You need a pervasive network. And it's not easy to build out a single network that's that large, right? So a big role for telecom operators to sort of play there. The second challenge is, or the reason why this project was set up was because discoms or energy distribution companies were seeing losses. They were seeing pilferage, they were seeing collection costs, they were seeing just, deputing a person to go read a meter and come back sometimes would cost more than the bill of that month. Right? Just the sheer logistics of some of this, right? And the solution was easy. It was tested in the market, having a digital meter, right? But the implementation of this was hard. The discoms were losing money, so someone needed to fund the meter. Right? The users were going to fight you because everyone who's trying to do pilferage now needs to pay up what they really have to pay up, right? And the third problem was the discoms needed cash flow. So they came up with a plan to convert these meters from postpaid to prepaid, right? Which means that 250 million people for 1 month had to pay 2 bills. And sometimes it's hard to pay 2 bills, right, on energy. So I think just the sheer scale of the problem was amazing. We worked with a lot of discoms, not just to provide connectivity. A lot of operators are notoriously famous to only stop at what they do, which is we'll provide connectivity and go away and we'll just charge for it. I think the part that we really understood is to create a platform which includes the software services, includes the CapEx to OpEx conversion, includes connectivity, includes providing the SLA support that these discoms need for uptime, because energy needs to run all the time, right? Nobody remembers their energy provider. Like nobody remembers their connectivity provider till it stops working. Nobody wants to remember their energy provider as well, right? So having a pervasive network that works, a collections agency that does this work at zero loss, and the ability to distribute this activity across several hundred discoms who all are on a different technology stack was, that was the work that we set off to start. Very hard, took us close to 9 months just to bring them on board to come on the same specification, on the same template. But today we have close to 45 million meters in India that are live and are working on this technology. And the hope is that we will hit that 250 million mark in the next 2.5 years.
That's fantastic. And does it make business sense for you? If so, why? If not, how long before you see that it'll start making proper business sense?
So it makes a lot of business sense for us. It was the business model was hard, and I'll tell you why. So if you look at the stack, right, it's a sandwich. You have connectivity, you have software, you have physical deployment of the meter. You then have billing. You also need cloud services. You need security because eventually it's personal data of that consumer, right? Just the purchasing currency for each of these products is different. You buy cloud using a virtual machine. You buy security using a license. You buy SIM using a monthly rental. You buy hardware using CapEx. Right? So just the currency is different. So the first problem that we solved was, can we bring all of this into a per meter, per month billing model, right? And just offer one price. What we did was we abstracted out the OEMs to say you have to fit into a framework that builds value for us as an SI, builds value for the discom, right? In terms of both cash flow, because nobody's going to pay you for that meter up front, so you need to sort of finance that meter. So I think the outcome is very fulfilling, right? The model today works, and the entire ecosystem sort of makes money. And the discoms are happy because it took them some time, but when they saw the result of knowing exactly what their revenue is that month and being able to collect it was a big win, because you have predictability in that business.
Fabulous. That's great to hear. Fred, picking up on what Abhishek just said, they're talking about energy, which Airtel has picked up. How do you pick sectors that then, where off the entire city pile, this is a sector where I'm going to engage and probably it will make business sense for me. How do you go about that decision making, picking up business models that probably will be like sensible for you?
As I said earlier, our purpose is to transform lives. So for us, we follow the need. That is what always informs which sector we get into. And what we find is that initially, you may not make money from that immediate adjacency, but we do make the money downstream, most of the time through our payments platform. Let me give an example. So at the moment, we are also in the energy space, where we are trying to move people from using charcoal and firewood into gas. So we have a company called MGas, where we have a pay-as-you-go model that allows the users, through an IoT platform, get the cylinder, which we deliver almost like on a milk run basis. And it's able to check how much gas is in the cylinder, and then be able to notify us when the cylinder needs to be replaced. And all the user needs is to tap a card. So how does that benefit us? So one, helps Kenya start moving forward on our various climate change initiatives. Two, it drives stickiness to our various products and to our platform. So on M-Pesa, all transactions of 150 shillings and below are free. That's about $1.50 of transactions are free. The daily earnings for most Kenyans about 100 shillings. That's about $1 a day. So you can imagine that the scale of what we're offering from a free perspective. But as you start empowering that individual's life, their life starts improving, and they quickly move to a chargeable scale. And they then tend to stick to our network, despite his subsidiary network in our country.
Partner network.
All right, and that's then how we're able to start generating income through the larger ecosystem. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thanks, Fred. Amy, on to you now. How is it looking for Basigo? You were talking about 29 buses that are rolling at the moment, and
49 on the road 49. in
49.
Kenya. 6 in Rwanda.
And how many interests that you haven't been able to fulfill? What's your future plan as a company? How do you see yourself scaling, and how can entities like Safaricom, Airtel support you going forward?
Yeah. So. The scale, let's just address that one first. So we have a goal of 1,000 buses in the next 3 years. We just raised our Series A funding last October, so that was $42 million, led by an African fund, Africa 50, who put in 24 with other existing investors, including CFAO, which is very useful, working with them to do local assembly of the buses in Kenya and really grow manufacturing in Kenya. So this year, we made some big changes to the factory with the help of our investor, CFAO, which will allow us to go from production of 1 bus per week to 1 bus per day. And so we'll aim to finish the year with over 200 buses across Kenya and Rwanda. And we actually have 10 beautiful new buses on the water right now, heading to Rwanda. So really excited to get those, because we work directly with the OEMs to design buses fit for the roads in Kenya and Rwanda. So that's what the future looks like. And in terms of how to get there, one of the big things that we need support on is how to revolutionize the experience for the passenger and the operator. So really smoothing out, I talked about digitization of the business for the bus operators. The cash that they're receiving today from the passengers, they're also paying out to the various people that they need to pay to run the business. So you have different parking fees or different payments to the organizations that are maintaining the licenses for whichever routes you're running. Obviously, we've taken out fuel costs, so that's one cost that they're not having to manage, but they're doing third-party insurance. There's various costs that they're having to manage on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. And once we digitize the fare collection from the passengers, then something that would be really great to work on, with the MNOs is digitizing and automating the management of their business. So really making it much smoother for them to do their fleet operations. Right now, you still find a situation where they're sending someone into town to collect fare from a bus driver in the middle of the day so that that person can then go to various different other offices to pay for some of these operating costs, So it's very expensive in terms of the people that they need to employ. It's very leaky because we're dealing with cash. And so there's big losses for them as a business. So these are really big opportunities just to clean up, not only from a climate perspective and emissions perspective, but just cleaning up the operations and cleaning up the business so that they can really invest back into their business and grow and change the way that people move around the city. Another thing which, you mentioned is the IoT factor. So this is also a big difference that the EVs are bringing, is that we have telematics on board. And so we're getting a lot of insights, live insights from the buses that we use internally for our design with the OEMs, but also feeds into those tools that the operators can use. So working with the mobile providers to have SIM cards, which are reliably transmitting this data in a way that's financially scalable for us. Because we really are, the price is still quite sensitive, right? We require a lot of money up front to buy the bus. Electric buses are much more expensive than combustion engine ones. And so we have to be really inventive with how we're pricing that for this industry, which is incredibly price sensitive. It's increasingly lower and lower margins. It's highly competitive. The bus providers, they maybe used to have some subsidies, which they don't have benefit of anymore. It's very easy for somebody in Kenya, it's relatively unregulated. So it's pretty easy for you to just have enough money to start running some buses and suddenly you're an operator. Yeah. It's very important for us to make sure that pay-as-you-drive lease fee is as low as possible. And obviously the cost of having the telematics running on all of the buses and transmitting the data live enough that the insights are actually useful, all of that could get very expensive. So I think there's big opportunities to work directly to make that more scalable and affordable and pass that on to the operators.
Awesome. Thanks, Amy. I think for this panel, we are running out of time, so we'll just open up for one question. I haven't had a chance to tie all of the information up together, so that onus is on you. So whoever is going to ask the question needs to bring all of this together. No pressure. Anyone? Kenichi there at the back.
I just wanted to ask the operators about partnerships. You've talked about, how you have tried to move up the value chain from connectivity to platforms and the rest. But are you partnering with, other suppliers, developers to move up, or are you developing those capabilities in-house?
Maybe I can start. All right. In the case of Safaricom, it's a mix of both. We are developing some of that capacity in-house, but the larger component of what we have deployed is through partnership. It allows us to move faster, and it allows us then to be able to scale a lot faster with the capabilities of others.
I think very similar for us at Airtel. It was hard initially to get the partners on board because because the stack is pretty wide, right? So you also have to get them to talk to each other. So I think that's where we stepped in to say we will write the framework of how the partners will come together, and then open it sort of up for competition to say, give them fair play. For example, for cloud, we have all the hyperscalers as partner, right? And for the digital services part, we actually got down and funded a startup to build that out. So I think a bunch of models can bring this together. But coming back, I think the telco or the operator needs to be the one that takes the lead in bringing the partners together. And that's important because eventually a partner is always a functional expert of their domain, right? But you need a larger horizontal player. I think that's where the MNO should take a leadership role.
Fabulous. Thank you so much for this. I mean, I've learned so much today myself, having worked on that project. Still, there's so much learning. Thank you so much, everyone. And I'd like you to take your seats here, and I'll pass it on to George for the next panel, which is going to be, hopefully, as fascinating as this one. Let's see.
Thank you.
Thanks, Akanksha. I'm just going to change slides quickly. There you go. And with me on stage, I will have Alexandra Vidal Dordello, who's the Research and Project Manager for the Global Cities Program at the Barcelona Center for International Affairs, and also Thomas Odhiambo, the Director for Special Programs at the ICT Authority in Kenya. So, Thomas, thanks for joining us here. We're really happy to have you. I mean, Kenya is often seen as a leader when it comes to digital innovation, and I think regulators and government has a lot to do with it. So can you talk a bit about how you can effectively create an enabling environment for private sector companies and innovators to play a role in the smart cities ecosystem in Kenya?
Thank you for having me here. I think it's great to be in Barcelona. I think for us in Kenya, we have been running, the government is driving a digital transformation agenda, and we have a 10-year master plan. We are on the second year, very ambitious, including, doing 100,000 kilometer fiber. And in the plan, which we co-created with the private sector, we sat with the telcos, for example, my friend here. And out of the 100,000 kilometer fiber that government intends to achieve, for example, we have assigned a portion, 48,000 kilometer. We hope that will be taken up by private sector. We will do 52,000. But in that, we hope to do only a certain part. Remember when we were developing the master plan, we sat with them. They told us where the issues were. They couldn't reach the far-flung places. It's not economically viable. We said we'd go there. And in areas where they had interest, we left them to them. In fact, we have a situation where we build the infrastructure, we lease some of it to them. In areas where they already built the infrastructure, we lease some of it from there. So I think, in a way, collaborative approaches and dealing with the private sector as much as possible is an approach we've taken, and we're saying for government, for us, it's actually just a stopgap. At the end of the day, we'd be very happy to deliver services and get all the facilitations through the private sector, because at the end of the day, that's really not our business. But where it is not cost effective, then we do come in, and we make sure we do that by having a very robust regulatory and policy framework, which is also, we do it with the private sector so that we're able to give them what they can, what they need to offer the services, so that together we can serve the businesses and the citizens who need our services.
Thanks a lot, Thomas. Alexandra, the one word that you probably see the most here at MWC today is AI. I think there's probably an AI stand in every hall, and you could probably play some games around how many times you see it. But my question is, you're running the Global Urban AI Atlas program, and have done a lot of research on this. So could you describe the program a bit and help demystify a bit what we mean when we talk about AI solutions in cities?
Yeah, thank you, George, for having me here also. From TIDOP, which is an international relations think tank based in Barcelona, we lead this Global Observatory of Urban Artificial Intelligence with the support of the City Coalitions for Digital Rights, which is a city network with more than 45 cities standing for digital rights. And with the support of the City Council of Barcelona and UN Habitat. From this observatory, we basically research on urban AI, as its name indicates, but specifically on what are city governments doing with this technology, and from an ethical standpoint. So the goal is to promote systems that are fair, sustainable, transparent, accountable, cyber secure, and so on and so forth. And from this research, we basically have this flagship project, which is the Atlas of Urban AI. It's an interactive map, and it's public, open for everyone to see, where we basically map out what cities are doing in this regard throughout the world, from this ethical standpoint. We built this atlas and launched it in 2022. And then in 2023, we basically collected all of the data and analyzed what we could see, what trends we could find in urban AI worldwide. And what we found was several findings that I actually want to share with you that basically indicate that transparency and privacy protection are the most commonly applied principles when cities want to implement this technology. They pay specific attention to these two principles. We also found that this technology is not only being used by big cities such as New York and Singapore, which of course they are, but also by small and medium-sized cities that are also getting hold of this technology and also are applying it for solving their urban challenges. We also found that this is almost always a multi-stakeholder endeavor, and this is very important, I think, because it appears to be a public-private partnership always. This is also because cities generally have financial and technical constraints, so they cannot build their own AI solutions. So they usually go to the private sector and are like, hey, I've got this problem. So they procure the solution from the private sector. And this is very important here, I think, because like we've seen all of these amazing projects, and city governments are particularly interested in these types of solutions. Then we also found that adoption and governance have a significant gap. So we see that many cities are adopting this technology, but not that many are governing its use. And I think this is going to shift in the years to come. We're already seeing it at the international level, but also at the local level. Because until now, we've had a more pragmatic approach, so solution-oriented approach. I have this problem, I want to solve it. Okay, this technology is amazing for it, so I will just use it. But now we're seeing that there's a pressure on, okay, we need to govern this, because actually there's some backlash that we're having sometimes using this technology, and we have to take into account several ethical principles. Otherwise, we're going to start using this technology and found that like we're generating other problems that we weren't foreseeing. And so, yeah, I think this kind of like is the trend that we're heading to. This creation of policy mechanisms and governance frameworks that cities are going to start implementing. Right now, our atlas just shows like 20% of cities are doing this. And this is just expected to grow. So
basically, you're saying, you know, regulators are in a way playing catch up to the innovations that are taking place. Maybe just one follow-up question, just because obviously we just heard from a lot of private sector perspectives. How do you think the private sector can better position itself to actually play a conducive role to local governments and also understand their constraints and objectives more effectively?
Okay, so I feel like the private sector are doing what they do best, which is basically innovate. So they're on the right track in that sense. So I feel like the ball is more on the other side, like on local governments. So they will always reach out to in general, they will reach out to the private sector because of these financial constraints and technical constraints. So this partnership is inevitable. So what I'm seeing is basically from the local perspective side, what they want to do is try to regulate this partnership so it benefits both of them. Right. So of course the private sector has a obvious benefit, which is using their AI solutions in the city. So it's a large scale model. And from the side of the city councils, it's beneficial because they then can access solutions for their urban challenges. But then what we're seeing is that many cities, to create this partnership, they're using procurement clauses. So they put these clauses within the contracts of the collaboration that they have with the private sector in order to make clear what they need the private sector to provide. And this makes for a stronger partnership somehow, and it also sometimes prevents, of course, the private sector of to open their code, which generally they don't want to do. So it creates a way more seamlessly collaboration.
Yeah, really interesting. The topic of procurement clauses really resonates. We've seen that in some of our research as well, especially on ride-hailing companies, that a lot of governments, into the clauses of ride-hailing companies, there'll be certain data sharing clauses that will be included so that transport authorities can also use the data from ride-hailing companies in order to engage in transport planning. Thomas, I want to get back to you and ask a bit about some of the successful public-private partnerships you've seen in Kenya when it comes to smart cities. I know one project that a lot of people are talking about, for instance, is the Konza Technopolis project, for example, but I'm sure there are many others. If you can talk a bit about that, as well as other successful public-private partnerships and how you were able to craft those.
Thank you for that. I think for the idea of involving private sector, I think is where it all starts. And for Kenya, we have a robust legal framework. We have PPP policy and act, which provides, avenues for engagement for PPP opportunities in the country. And we had about 3-4 years ago the first toll road, which initially the indications were it wasn't going to be successful, but it's been 27.1 kilometers just across the city. It's been phenomenal, and that was on design, finance, build, maintain, and transfer basis. That's one of the models. Right now, there are even engagements between Mombasa, Nairobi, again for another build, operate, transfer model. So there are 14 flavors in the framework, and we are using those. In fact, even now, government policies to find ways of working with the private sector to co-share. So, of course, we're doing the Konza Smart City, Technopolis, in collaboration with partners. So we have bilateral agreements, of course, with other governments, but we also have companies, private companies there, and we do cost-share agreements with them where they provide services which we resell again even within government, and we do share the revenue. Even in government now, there's a lot of encouragement. We have, for example, systems. I'll mention one, integrated population registration system, which is run by the Ministry of Interior. This is a facility that allows private sector companies, banks to authenticate citizens and foreigners before, let's say, they open bank accounts. And they do pay a small amount for each access. And this again goes back to revamping the system and making sure this is rolled out more. We're also experimenting with support from the World Bank, infrastructure development, because we've realized when we have, even as we aspire to do 100,000 kilometer of fiber, GOK now we have only about 14,000. So there's a huge headroom there. So we've noticed that we do spend a lot of money to put in the infrastructure, which we try to resell some to the telcos. They lease a bit of the cores, for example, but they end up taking only a little bit. We've put in a lot more, then we maintain it, still cost. So we're trying to have a situation where we deal with the private sector through an auction system. We identify a route, and we say we want to do so many cores, for example, and how much do you want to put in, what's your appetite, and how much can we put in, and everybody comes. So we end up with somebody who we co-share the infrastructure, but they maintain it, and we only use what we need to use as government, because we've been over-investing and we can't resell. So that and other approaches, so that really, at the end of the day, we maximize the value for the citizen. We don't, and we're able to use that resources to do other areas, and we involve the private sector more and more. I think that's a route. If we can find a way so that it's easy also for the private sector to participate, I think suddenly we have a win-win, and everybody is okay.
No, it's really interesting how you've been speaking about the different PPP frameworks and making sure you use the right one for the right context.
Yep.
And I think that's definitely part of it. I just want to get back to one point that came up earlier in Alex's contribution and get both of your thoughts on this question, which is, this notion that regulators are playing catch up in the context of disruptive innovation. So if you could say like a couple of points, 2 to 3 ways in which innovators can effectively play catch up and govern disruptive innovations like AI effectively without stifling some of the potential associated with the use cases. What would you say from your experience? What would be some effective strategies with regards to this, from both of your perspectives?
Should I start? Okay.
Sure.
Well, we've seen that the cities that are trying to regulate like AI have put in place several types of, a vast array of policy mechanisms to try to build these comprehensive frameworks to govern the use of AI that they're doing. And so many of these measures are actually social-technical, so they're more social and technical in nature. So they don't talk about regulating the code or the architecture of the models. It's more about how you use this technology. And so we find that, for example, they create strategies where they adhere to certain ethical principles that the city must kind of like respect in order to use this technology. They create guidelines or handbooks for example, the use of generative AI by part of the municipality, like ChatGPT or other types of text-to-text or language models that they're using. They create independent and external advisory bodies. So of course they're not experts themselves, so they find different types of experts, multidisciplinary, they bring them together for them to oversee their use of AI. We see also more technical measures, such as human rights assessments or bias analysis that they ask external providers to do to these systems. And we also, we'll see if I'm leaving something behind. Yep, also the creation of internal protocols for the city councils to use when they procure AI or use AI. And so these are some of the guardrails that they're placing in order to be able to use this technology while bringing ease to the citizens that they're actually doing it in a safe way.
Oh, great examples, and I like the sort of concept of guardrails and also the awareness that a lot of, obviously, municipalities don't have AI experts within them themselves, so they actually need to, get experts on boards through advisory boards and so on. Thomas, your perspective on that?
Yes, I think maybe we need an AI solution for this problem because it's been there and it's not going to, it's getting worse, I think, because the level of changes that we experience. We just launched the National Digital Master Plan 2 years ago. Right now we're finalizing on the AI strategy for the country. So, and I'm sure by next year we will be doing something else. It will be on blockchain. We all know it will be there because of what AI will have made us become as a world in 1 year, 2 years' time, because that is where we are. So I think we just have to be more agile in our approach. Government, for example, I think we're on the spotlight because we tend to be bureaucratic, slow. We really make sure everything is, and that time may not be available unless, of course, we're the ones with the latest AI and we're able to be slightly ahead of everybody else. So I think the approach, we possibly will have to, the turnaround time of some of the policy documents we do, the processes that we use, public participation, maybe we even use other platforms and so on so that it is faster, but I don't think we have any option. This will keep coming, the necessity to have policy, laws to regulate AI, standards, ICT authority, we do standards, we need standards for everybody, for schools and everybody, so that then as a society we're able to tap in and exploit these emerging technologies, and this will continue. This is, I think, where we are.
Yeah, it's great, and I also I really like that you sort of highlight the necessity to move fast, and that in this sort of exponential age of technological innovation, that will just continue. Also, thought it was interesting what you mentioned in the beginning. I don't know if it was a joke or you meant it, but actually leveraging AI for regulatory purposes itself. So using the very thing you're trying to regulate in order to come up with better regulations as well. I know that a lot of regulators are looking at that as well. Just wanted to pause here to give the audience the chance to ask any questions. Please feel free to raise your hand and we'll get you a mic. Any questions on governing and regulating smart cities from the audience? Well, I will have one more question in that case. We've been talking a lot about public-private partnerships, regulation, and so on. What I would like to know a bit more about is, the role of startups. We have Amy here representing a really interesting company in Basigo. So one problem that we face a lot with the Innovation Fund startups that we support in the GSMA is that a lot of governments only look at incumbents when it comes to big projects that they want to engage in. You need to showcase that you have had a track record for 15 years, that you've delivered different solutions effectively so that the government can trust that you will be delivering that project. But the fact is that a lot of early stage innovators, they might have a better idea that might be more cost effective, but they don't have the 15 years track record to show for it. So how do you think about kind of using local procurement, public-private partnership in order to stimulate not just the kind of big corporates in your countries, but also the kind of startup ecosystem? Any thoughts on that?
Yes, I think that's very right. And of course, we are very happy Basigo is really going places. We are used to the big boys like Safaricom leading the innovations and supporting innovations, and they have a large budget of their to R&D to fast track that. Yeah. But of course, also like in Kenya, we have a very big population, youth, very innovative. But as you say, they may not have the means or support to really make sure that their innovations see light of day. So one of the things we propose as an authority is that we involve them at the procurement, actually, that they're able to participate in procurement and sort of test. And we've seen this in solutions that are being used by government agencies that were developed by interns. We run a one-year interns, computer science graduates intern. Those interns typically produce, wherever they go, they do complete systems which the agency adopts and uses. And usually we don't have like a revenue share model, the gentleman or lady develops and the agency runs with it. So we are proposing a situation where these youths with their solutions can actually participate in procurement, if you like, that solves a problem in a ministry or an agency. Once that has been proven, then they are compensated in that. So it's like a bit opposite. Typically, the government works in, we have the money, we look for a solution, then we get who is the solution, cheapest price, then we sign and we pay. Mm-hmm. So we're trying to have a situation where they enjoy the solution. If it works, they are now able to pay the youth or the innovator for that particular, and we hope it will go somewhere along the lines, of course, apart from us taking them in board and, mentoring them in the process.
Interesting. And I'll get to you in a second. Just to react really quickly, one of the startups that was quite successful in our Innovation Fund cohort is called WonderKid, which is a Kenyan startup founded by Kenyans that is providing meter reading solutions as well as digitized complaint management systems for water utilities across Kenya. And for that startup to actually take off, now it's operating in over 5 African countries, working with over 20 water utilities. It required 4 Kenyan water utilities to take a chance on this young company, right? And actually help them demonstrate the solution in an ecosystem. The water utility ecosystem is quite risk averse and conservative, right? So that's why it's quite interesting to hear about those examples. Alex, over to you.
I just wanted to add to what Thomas said, that I feel like that's also the case for cities that are a bit more flexible in that sense, because they're used to kind of having pilots of different stakeholders. They're hubs for innovation and and talent and different stakeholders. So in general, they're more used to maybe piloting solutions and technologies that do not have this 15 years of experience, but that come from startups or students that are trying to create new solutions. So I feel like this is easily given in the city context of smart cities, such as Barcelona or Amsterdam or New York.
Absolutely, yeah. Cities are, in a way, also laboratories of innovation in which you can test things out that then can scale to other cities and across countries as a whole. And yeah, thanks so much for providing your perspectives. I think we'll end here. I want to thank both of you, the previous panelists as well, and the audience that came by to listen. If you want to stay in touch with us, I'm just going to quickly change over the next slide. You'll see an email address and a QR code there. Oh, there we go. Thank you. Appreciate that. And you can use that to stay in touch with us. If you have any follow-up questions about our work, feel free to reach out. And as I mentioned, this report on smart city solutions in low and middle income countries will come out in May, likely, of this year. So please watch out for that. And yeah, thanks a lot and enjoy the rest of MWC. Thanks for getting it started with us here. I'm sure you'll have a lot of steps to take from now until the end of the conference. Cheers. Thanks.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome to this session, Behind the Scenes of AI, Shaping the Deep Tech Ecosystem for Impact. I'm very happy to be here and to give you a quick intro to this 1-hour session. We have lots of interesting speakers who are going to tell us about their work on AI and deep tech in LMICs, low and middle income countries. This is our main focus for this discussion, and impact, of course. My name is Daniele Tricarico. I'm the head of emerging tech at the GSMA, Mobile for Development, the GSMA Foundation. Before we start, let me give you a little bit of an introduction around Mobile for Development. So Mobile for Development is about driving innovation in digital technologies to reduce inequalities in the world. As I mentioned, we focused on Africa, emerging APAC in particular. We work with the private sector. We work with MNOs, mobile network operators. We startups, so the private sector are large, really, and development partners. We have a strategic partnership with the FCDO, the UK government, the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office of the UK government. And what we do, really, we support scalable, impactful, and commercially sustainable digital innovations in LMICs that are obviously enabled by mobile. In terms of our areas of work, you probably heard already before from us in M4D, digital inclusion is a big area of focus, of course, addressing the usage gap. We do lots of work on handset affordability, for example, in LMICs. Financial inclusion, of course, is an area where we've been active for many years with our mobile money program, digital financial services. Climate resilience, using mobile phones, mobile technology to support communities, to increase resilience, and to support climate action. And humanitarian response. This is also another big area of focus for our team in M4D. And now we're adding a new one, which we're calling emerging technologies. This is a new pillar, really, of our work on digital development. We're launching a program called Emerging Tech, and AI is certainly at the center of what we do. We have been working and really observing developments in AI for the past few years. It is really everywhere, as you can see here in this event. What we've seen is obviously MNOs are becoming more AI-centered. They're shifting to AI-driven business models, but also startups, innovators. We work with startups. They're also adopting AI. AI is becoming a great driver for scale, for innovation, but also to scale business models and solutions. We've been spending quite a bit of time understanding the opportunity, the landscape. There are challenges, of course, in LMICs when it comes to data, skills, compute. Think about GPUs. Having enough GPUs in LMICs is challenging. They're costly. So we're really trying to support the ecosystem. And data is a huge challenge. Think about generative AI, local language models, which are absolutely needed, right, to drive innovation in local languages in LMICs. Today, we came across a very interesting stats during our research. Today, if you look at the totality of content on the internet, content in African languages is only 0.1% of all the content on the internet. So this just tells you the size of the challenge when it comes to developing local language models and therefore Gen AI innovations in LMICs. So we are, as GSMA, as M4D, supporting innovators with developing scalable solutions using AI across multiple use cases. We are very focused, obviously, on impact at the last mile. So think about innovations with agri-tech, precision agriculture, using data-generating technologies, because really the data piece is absolutely crucial. You can't have AI without data. So we're keen to leverage data, such as data from IoT, satellites, drones, computer vision, in conjunction with AI to really drive innovation. And to do this, we are launching an innovation fund. So we have a new emerging tech program, but also a new innovation fund on impactful AI. And we are supporting innovations, startups, with grant funding, with technical assistance. The idea is really to de-risk innovation, support scalable solutions. We're keen, of course, to document learnings. We're just starting. We're accepting applications till the 12th of March, and you have all this information on the QR code if you're a startup or if you know of startups who would like to apply and work with us over the coming years. We have a grant funding of between 100,000 and 250,000 UK pounds, plus technical assistance and support from the GSMA. But I just wanted to mention quickly one thing before moving into the core of our session and our discussion. As I mentioned before, we are focusing on innovations at the last mile. But to have innovations at the last mile, things like precision agriculture, for example, imagine using IoT and computer vision, allowing farmers to have precise advisory, data-driven advisory at the farm level in real time. You need data and you need AI. But you also need innovations at the ecosystem level, right? Or if it's other innovations, imagine edtech innovation. You want to use generative AI to provide personalized education material to students, to teachers in countries, in low resources contexts. You do need local language models. You need that innovation at the ecosystem level. And this is really the idea of this session, to also explore not just the innovations at the last mile, but also the innovation at the enabling environment. When it comes to local language models, natural language processing, NLP is very important as well. It's a space where we need innovations. Edge computing as well, pushing intelligence on devices closer to the users. This is really important in frugal or low context settings like in LMICs. So this is the agenda for today. I'm done with my remarks. We're going to move into an introduction with our operator, Dialogue Sri Lanka. And then we're going to move into a panel discussion, focus on Africa. We have 3 exciting startups from Nigeria, Kenya, and Ethiopia as well, telling us about their journey with AI. So without further delay, let me call to the stage Supun Veerasinghe, who's going to tell us about the MNO Dialogue Sri Lanka's journey with AI, and also your reflections on deep tech and what it means for you. Over to you, Supun.
Thank you, and good afternoon to all of you. From Sri Lanka. I'm not sure that you know where Sri Lanka is. A little below India, a small island nation with 20 million people. Dialogue is part of the Asiata Group, a regional telecommunications provider spanning south and southeast of Asia. I'll take you through key experiences in terms of how we see AI and how we have brought in AI into our business, into our sustainability practices, and to the larger network operations. When you look at AI, the impact of AI, I think it's estimated that if you do it right, you can at minimum get about 5 to 7% percentage point uplift in EBITDA, about 20 to 40% uplift in valuation premiums. Because I think yesterday I saw Chairman of Bharat Airtel saying the telecommunications industry needs a reset. And in that context, AI plays a very pivotal role in enabling that new telecommunications industry, the communications ICT industry that we want to create for the next decade. The Arthur D. Little says that the key areas of opportunity in telecommunications is on customer service and network operations. And instead of trying to boil the ocean, we need to look at what are the priority areas that you can start getting results. We have identified marketing, customer support as one big area, business as another area, and then network operations as the third area. Because it's common tendency to try and do AI in everywhere, but it's very important to maintain focus so that you can deliver business results and then you can show impact and outcomes to your stakeholders so that you can get more investments behind AI, because otherwise it can become just another fad, and then you waste a lot of time and money without achieving anything. In terms of this transformational challenge, at our organization, I say that AI first. This year, I have 3 pillars in terms of focus: delivering business results, and driving winning the must-win battles, and the third area is creating the future. Under creating future, we have said that we are going to create an organization which is AI first. However, it is easier said than done. You cannot simply create an AI first organization if you don't have the right foundations at the bottom in terms of data infrastructure, the data platforms, making sure your data governance is proper, and the other ecosystem elements that are in place. So what we see is that the data layer plays a very big role in this entire AI journey. If you don't get data layer proper, data definitions, data quality, and the governance around data, then you cannot really make the best impact out of AI. Then working with partners, the hyperscalers, is very important, because as telcos we know certain areas of, or we have certain areas of expertise, we have data, but the processing capability is not with us. And that's where you need to collaborate and bring that global scale to support our local operations. And then bringing the right tools and the platforms. What we see is that in order to create this data first, AI first organization, we have to empower everyone with AI tools and skills. So we have done in the process of training everyone on prompt engineering. When we did the first program, there were more than 300 staff signing up for this. Dialog is an organization with 1,400 staff. Immediately there were 300 staff signing up. We had to close the applications because the program was getting too crowded. And that's the kind of interest that we see among staff. And then we have now got them to create prompts and applications. So one prompt that the enterprise team has created was to read the tender documents that the government publishes for their tenders. Because reading a tender document is a very cumbersome task. So the enterprise sales team has now created AI prompt and made that task easier. So AI for all requires that training of everyone, onboarding everyone into the ecosystem. In operations, it will drive speed and scale. I'll give you some examples of how it helps network operations, business operations, driving speed and scale. It also enables segment of one experience. You cannot deliver customer experience on a mass scale going forward. You have to bring in that segment of one, and AI enables that. And then for M2D, mobile for development, to make a larger impact with a lower cost, AI makes a very big impact. In terms of the roadmap, we had predictive intelligence, we have operational optimization, and now we are looking at bringing more large language models, specialized tools, and then also agentic AI in our operations. Couple of use cases from the network, using network data for network optimization, so that you don't need to visit the sites, or you don't need to do these cumbersome optimizations manually, but collecting the current network data and then getting the model to predict the best configurations. Again, it improves speed, improves the efficiency of the network operations team. The second use case is on preventing power leakage. Looking at using the power consumption at the base station, using data models to identify where the power consumption is not optimal and identifying leakage and then correcting it. Then we have also cut down our network operations center by more than 50% in terms of resources. We have moved the entire NOC virtual now. The ticket generation has been given to machines. They contact the field agents. They also have AI agents who go and fix the network, and thereby significantly improving the efficiency in the overall network operations and driving productivity. The other initiative is with Meta in terms of optimizing and based on user experience. So we combine our customer data, our experience data, along with the data from Meta on their Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp application behaviors. Combining the two, we are able to then bring in further optimizations. On WhatsApp, for example, we have reduced the bad quality calls by 5%, improved the good quality calls again by 5%. A significant improvement that we have seen in early implementations of this model. Then AI for marketing, something that we can easily adopt. We started with simple image generation. Now we also do full TV commercials through AI. Reduces the time to market and also reduces the cost. something that easily can be adopted and readily available. Not only creating images, but also you can have multiple renditions of your brand ambassadors. Getting a brand ambassador for a commercial is a time-consuming task. But once you have the brand ambassador, you can create the AI avatar of that and then use commercials or renditions through that. Similarly, on business, CVM, customer value management, we used to be one-to-many. Now we have made one-to-one, from offer generation, communication, selecting the right medium, right time to communicate, right messaging, all that bringing in AI. In terms of impact, it is more than 10x. One simple example is last year, Dialog's overall revenue growth on prepaid was 27% year-on-year revenue growth. So I'm sure that gives an indication in a declining or stagnant industry, if you can get 20+% growth in your core revenues, powered by market corrections as well as using technology properly. The other one is using AI for health tech. Telemedicine is a challenging area, trying to give telemedicine remotely. But the health scan feature that we have enabled on our health app enables the user to look at or take a selfie scan, we call it, hold the phone on your face, and it captures all the vitals, including your blood pressure, your heart rates, BMI indicators, and identify the critical vital variations so that the doctor can prescribe medication. Then AI in customer care, both for agentic support, supporting our agents, as well as direct customer support. This one is on, I think we spoke about using agri-tech, and Dialog was one of the early adopters of GSMA funds assistance on agri-tech. That was a IVR-based solution which we launched about 7-8 years ago. Today, we are able to bring AI into that. The first generation of agri-tech was giving the farmer a call, automated call every day saying that, did you do this? This is what you do, should you do today? But we have brought in AI into that, and we have created an app where the farmer can now talk to the agent, which is an AI agent, saying, I have this problem with my crop, what should I do? And all this is local language, not English, and not also text. Because here we can make a massive impact on the consumer in terms of improving the impact through technology and impact through AI. So overall, what we are seeing is that it is important to embrace it. It is important to collaborate rather than trying to think that you can develop everything on your own, but also do the fundamentals right, especially the data layer, and bringing in the capabilities of the external partners, the startup ecosystem into your platforms so that you can create something powerful to the communities. With that, I'll end and be available for Q&A and during the fireside chat. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Supun. We can take a seat for the fireside chat. Yeah. Thank you. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Eugénie. I'm part of the GSMA Mobile for Development. I'm an Insights Manager with the Central Insights Unit. So really glad to be here. Thank you so much, Supun, for this presentation, for telling us a bit more about your work around AI. It's really interesting to see the range of use cases that Dialog has been working on. Both internally, I think some of the use cases that you mentioned were for the mobile operator, network efficiency, energy management, but you also have a few use cases for impact, as the one that you mentioned in agriculture and healthcare as well. So I'm wondering, and you also mentioned these different elements, but I'm wondering how you see we often see some gaps in terms of the AI fundamentals, so data access, skills, talent development, but also talent retention, and compute. So I'm wondering, how do you see these different elements, playing in a country like Sri Lanka, and what does that mean for dialogue as well?
Yeah, I think it's not an easy task per se. Dialogue being the market leader and having access to a larger resource pool helps. However, it's important to, as I earlier mentioned, not try to boil the ocean. Set the fundamentals right, make sure that you have proper framework around data governance. Because if you don't have clean data, if you don't have your data quality defined, if you don't have your data dictionary, if you don't have your definitions on your data, the output that you are going to get is not going to be consistent. So the data layer is very important. Then adopting cloud, moving into hyperscalers, it's again critical. Without that, you cannot really make a larger impact and move faster. Then investing on the right talent. I remember when we started our digital transformation in 2017, we had a chief officer who was mandated full-time as the digital transformation officer. Once we got stabilized, once we progressed in that journey, by around 2021, 2022, we let go of that position. We basically made sure that everyone's responsibility is to drive digital transformation. Then around 2022, when AI was becoming a predominant driver of change and organization success, we created a special role for a chief officer who is in charge of analytics and AI. We hired a PhD in terms of having AI expertise to build awareness, train our people, and drive the organization, because we otherwise won't have that expertise. So investing on the right resources is important, and putting money behind that skill development is important. And then thereafter attracting the right people, because once you have the thought leader in the country working with you, driving your AI roadmap, it is very easy to attract good talent from universities, because they also believe that this organization believes in AI. He also not only helps Dialogue, but also helps Sri Lanka's AI roadmap. He's chairing the National AI Roadmap Steering Committee, helping the country as well. So you have to put money where the mouth is. Make sure that you get the right resources, support them with development, training, and make sure that the fundamentals of the organization is set in place in terms of governance.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. Thinking about inclusive AI, some of the use cases that you mentioned, specifically the one on agriculture, a lot of these solutions are accessible for users through mobile devices. But I'm wondering, for accessibility, what role can a mobile operator like Dialogue play in terms of ensuring that AI-enabled solutions are accessible to all different segments of the population?
Yeah, I think this challenge is twofold, I would say. One is try to make solutions accessible, but also to build awareness and capacity amongst the public. So if I take the first part, Dialogue has a strong developer ecosystem. We call it Idea Mart, with over 10,000 developers on our API platforms, which they develop apps. So now we have started developing those developers or training those developers on AI, and then making sure that they could bring in the applications on with the support of the APIs that we have opened up. Then we have also started putting about 100 AI labs in schools, training the next generation on AI and giving them the relevant hands-on experience on how to make use of AI. Because without training the next generation, you cannot really drive AI. And then in terms of even AI compute demand, we are not getting AI compute demand from large enterprises. We are getting compute demand from universities. Universities asking, can you get me GPUs? And we need to enable the universities and school ecosystem so that the children take interest and are driving AI. We have also created a national innovation challenge where they are developing applications and then participating in a national level competition. Move at the final stage, it is like a Shark Tank or reality TV program where they come on public TV on the #1 channel of the country and try and present their concepts and get exposure. So it is an overarching program, building capacity on the ground, giving them exposure, facilities, and resources. The other part is around accessibility for devices and applications. Here, the biggest challenge is affordability. In order to break this barrier, we have created a handset installment program where you can pay about 30 to 40%. If handset is $100, you can pay $30 and take the device. And we have, I think so far we have given close to about $40 million worth of devices through this program. So it's very mature program, and the NPL or the default rates are under 5%. We use our credit scoring, which again, AI plays a big role in terms of making sure our credit scoring is accurate and have accurate credit scores to give handsets on installment so that these customers can move in their value chain, getting a handset upgrade so that they can make use of these newer technologies.
Yeah, that's really good to know. And as you're saying, I think cost of handsets is one of the main challenges in terms of mobile ownership. Also seeing from the insight that you shared that partnerships seem to play quite a big role. You mentioned that you were quite strong on data collection, but that you're working with other organizations for things like data processing and maybe more on the infrastructure side of things. So what, maybe really briefly, what role do partnerships play more broadly in your strategy and for AI deployment as well at scale?
Yeah, I think there we go by this myth or try to break the myth of not invented here syndrome. Because as large telcos, we always have believed that everything has to be invented inside. And what comes out is not the right thing. Everything has to be created. So we try to first break that myth on NIH, not invented here, because then you are open to partnerships. The second principle is fail fast. A partner might bring something. If you don't try, you wouldn't know what you are missing out. And then if you take again months for evaluation, you have lost the battle already. Trying fast, adapting quickly, failing fast is very important. And then embracing collaboration as a way forward in AI, because there's so much that individually one can achieve. You need to benefit from global as well as local expertise. Trying to do it on your own is a recipe for disaster, I would say.
Thank you so much, Supin. I think we're going to move to the panel discussion. So yeah, thanks again for your time and sharing your insights. So I'll introduce Ibrahim and yeah, our panelists who are taking it from here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Ibrahim Sajid. I work with the GSMA and the M4D team as well. I'm super excited to be here. We have got a very rich panel of startups across Africa. I would like to introduce this amazing panel to you. We've got Bethlehem Desi, who is the founder and the CEO of ICOG. ICOG works in technology education and also in entrepreneurship. We have got Michael Ogandare. Michael is the founder and CEO of Crop to Cash from Nigeria. Crop to Cash is also one of our GSMA Innovation Fund grantees, and they are doing some amazing work in agri-tech And then we've got Mutembe Karaoke. Mutembe represents FastTagger. He's the co-founder and CEO of FastTagger. FastTagger works on AI on edge devices. So I would like the panel to introduce themselves. Mutembe, from you, please.
Thank you, Ibrahim. And good afternoon to everyone. Today has been a good morning in Spain where there's sun. I was really missing some sun from Nairobi. But yeah, as Ibrahim mentioned, my name is Mutembe Karaoke, co-founder and CEO of FastTagger. We are purely focused on AI inclusion and creating infrastructure that can help to run ML and AI models on edge devices, particularly smartphones. So for us, the technical challenge has been how do you build, compression, models or pruning models, techniques so that you can actually create, like an infrastructure where others can actually be able to take, a small language model, for example, like Phi-3, and quantize it and compress it to be able to run on a low-level, probably sub-$100 smartphone, especially the ones that are in Africa, which are mostly not the iPhone. That's a bit obvious, but actually a lot, Chinese-manufactured phones that I think have 6% of the market. And I think for me, we decided to focus on a problem that is really local to the reality. So growing up, my parents ran small and medium enterprises. That's about 50% of the African GDP. That's $1 trillion, right? That these small and medium enterprises contribute. And I myself was the one who was in charge of, putting the data together, taking all the receipts and reconciliation. And that was a very, very tiresome job because it was paper-based. And so later on, I got opportunities and I got to travel to Japan, and I did my master's in computer science and really focused on data and development. And when I came back, the problem is still there. Like in Africa, still a lot of these small and medium enterprises, they say there are about 100 million small and medium enterprises in Africa, still have the same problem, like paper-based, trying to reconcile that data, while the rest of the world has gone on software. But where was the opportunity that I saw? We saw that the opportunities that a lot of these small and medium enterprises are using mobile money now, right? Mobile money, a lot of that transaction, all the data is coming onto their device, or they're getting statements from the mobile company. And so what we decided with my co-founders is that how do we use now ML to enable them to extract information from this data, understand their customers, understand their businesses, and be able to increase sales from understanding their customers. And, talent-wise, my co-founding team, my co-founder, she's the head of data. She actually started here in Spain at IE, I think in Madrid, and she did big data and analytics there. So she started looking at this data and analyzing it and enabling to create a presentation from this small and medium enterprise that was very simple. And my other co-founder, he went to MIT and Georgia Tech and worked at Harvard on building data pipelines and that. And so we were felt very fortunate that we've had all this global experience. How do we now turn ML to run on this business's devices? So one thing that we realized through that whole process is that we're thinking about AI, and while people were solving very fancy problems outside there, in the US, pictures of cats, which is really good. But we decided to really focus on very local problems, and using all these talents that we had is just solving for that small business, being able to extract data from those PDF statements, run an ML model, and then connect it as a RAG on top of that data and give a business assistant to that small and medium enterprises running on a device, because most of them don't have internet, or internet in Africa still, especially mobile internet, still ends up being one of the most expensive, allowing them to actually run it, on the edge on their device and only connecting to the internet once in a while, or with reducing their costs for that. And we saw that's an opportunity for a lot of telcos to actually increase stickiness of using mobile money by these small and medium businesses. And then for the small businesses, they'll grow and continue using mobile money. And right now, I think GSMA in 2014 say that mobile money transacted about $1.4 trillion globally, and about 80% of that was in Africa. So if you can actually drive more of that, that's more value to the telco. It's growing small and medium enterprises and growing the African GDP.
Thank you. That was very, very interesting. I think that work really resonates with the session today as well. Michael, would you briefly talk about the work that you're doing with Crop to Cash?
Yeah, sure. I'm Michael. I lead the team at Crop to Cash, and from Nigeria. We make it very easy for smallholder farmers to get access to digital financial services and high quality inputs, and then on top of that, higher quality advisory. Now, how we actually got started into AI is very interesting. We leverage USSD technology to create a sort of mobile money system for farmers to make sure they can purchase products, fertilizers, seeds, and every other really good things that will make it a lot easier for them to increase their productivity and income. And then we started working with the GSMA to leverage this same technology to make it easy for farmers to get access to climate smart inputs. And that turned out to become a very interesting situation for us, where we needed to also train farmers on how to use this climate smart inputs. And that then exposed a very interesting gap for us, which is, why do I have to do this? The people that should be doing this training should be agronomists or extension agents, and the ideal ratio of an agronomist to farmers in Africa should be 1 agent to 50. But in Africa today, there's a huge gap, and the current reality is 1 agent is working about 10,000 farmers. That's a very huge gap. So it's a really big problem. Trying to figure out a way to close that. Can you train human extension agents fast enough to close that gap in order to make a lot more farmers climate resilient? The answer is most probably no. So we then need to figure out a way to leverage AI to close that gap. So what we then turned out to do, which is quite similar to what you're doing in Sri Lanka, is to leverage voice technology and to build an AI-powered extension agent that pretty much just any farmer can access via phone call. So they can, farmers in Nigeria today can call a toll-free number that we've developed with the GSMA, and they can, talk to their own personalized extension agent that knows who they are, that knows the crops they're growing, that knows the techniques, their practices, the inputs they're using, and can give them actionable advisory in real time in their local language. And because it's an AI agent, it does not sleep, it does not slumber, it doesn't take the weekend off. And this has proven to be very, very transformative to the farmers that are using it today. For us at Crop to Cash, we're working with nearly 500,000 farmers in Nigeria today. Recently just launched in Kenya late last year, and we're looking to expand to 10 more African countries, basically just leveraging AI to scale this fast. And the fact that we can make local languages work with artificial intelligence for smaller farmers in places where they don't even have internet connectivity. Think how ChatGPT's advanced voice mode works for you on your phone. We're pretty much bringing that same power to smaller farmers in their rural communities where they don't even have smartphones or they don't have internet connectivity. But as long as you can make a phone call, you can get access to the highest quality, latest agricultural advisory. And yeah, it's very interesting, and super happy to share more with everyone later today.
Thank you so much, Michael. With us, Betty or Bethlehem works majorly towards skill development and education, and her work has been really empowering because they have been training around 30,000 odd students. So I'd like you to please tell us more about that.
Thank you. My name is Bethlehem Dese. I am from Ethiopia. Our company, ICOG, has actually been working in AI for almost the past 8 years. Our affiliate, ICOG Labs, has been working in the AI industry for the past 12, providing services for companies like Hershey Chocolate, Sony Music, and the infamous Sophia the robot. So ICOG Labs has been working in the AI scene for a while before, AI started being very cool. But one of the biggest challenges that we faced while we were providing these services for these companies was talent, right? Talent was one of the biggest gaps that we had, and we started an initiative called ICOG Anyone Can Code, which was to empower young people in Ethiopia, but also encourage them to pursue careers in AI. And we've been doing that for the past 8 years. So one of, it has also been mentioned in the presentation, but also in the discussions earlier, there are foundations to make sure that AI is reaching, the communities that have been mentioned. And one of it is, of course, talent, having the right talent to develop the products. Another is compute, which we are not working on, but also another one is data. So we've seen a lot of gaps in terms of data, and the panelists here have also mentioned it, but in the case of Ethiopia, it looks very different. So finding and accessing data on low resource languages, and Ethiopia has over 80 plus languages, and it's over 120 million people. So as you can imagine, it's a huge population and a huge reach. So we've also started on tackling the problem of data through crowdsourcing data, language data, through a platform called Layu, which I'll explain more about hopefully in the follow-up questions.
Perfect. I think you've already prepared my segue to that question. We were talking about Leo earlier as the platform you are working on for making sure that low-resource languages are not left low-resourced, and you're working towards a more AI-inclusive view. Can you talk to us a little bit more about how you are doing this work, at the same time creating an enabling environment for people to contribute? How do you make sure that you are able to get good quality data from crowdsourcing in local languages, which generally people would have to take out time and invest their time to provide that data?
So, as you know, majority of the models that are running right now are trained basically on data that you find online. And this data is created by people who speak that language. And it has been mentioned at the beginning where a lot of the data that's created or the content available on the internet, the data created on African languages is less than 0.01%, right? So, which means a lot of the the users in this case, or the people creating the content, are not online and they don't have access to these tools. So we have to be proactive about how we collect the data, but also be ethical on how we collect the data. Majority of the data that's being collected is copyrighted by someone else, owned by someone else, even though most of these AI tools claim to be open source and free. They're actually collecting the data and utilizing it to make more money, while the people that have created the data are not being compensated for. So through our model, which is basically crowdsourcing these data sets, people that will be utilizing the AI tools that will be built on top of this data will also be able to contribute and benefit out of creating the data that they'll be using. And this is not a new model, actually. There is a company in India called Arya, which has utilized this and created more than 40,000 dignified jobs across India, but also powering, the AI revolution in India. So we're also very fortunate to partner with them to do something similar in Ethiopia, in which people will, you would get a task for, let's say, for example, $1 to read out a sentence. And then that data will be utilized to train large language models, automatic speech recognition models that will potentially be useful for some of the services that, for example, you have mentioned in terms of, supporting farmers or health extension workers or customer service in terms of telcos. So, yeah. Basically, that is the approach.
Thank you so much.
Taking.
That really helps build more context, and it gives us a better view of how you are making sure that the ecosystem is being developed by the people who are in the ecosystem. So that's like a really, really great insight for us. Mutembe, a question for you around the use case of AI on edge devices. We understand that you are right now working. You've been able to partner with an MNO, and you're trying to help them in terms of the mobile money situation. If you can talk a little bit more about that, and also share more details on how you see other use cases getting developed with AI on edge devices in low and middle income contexts.
Thank you, Ibrahim. I think one of the things that we always focused on is starting with a problem for a consumer. And in this case, we ended up partnering with Safaricom, partly owned by Vodafone. And they happen to be the largest mobile money, provider in the world, right? And I think almost 80% of the country in Kenya uses mobile money. And so we ended up, signing a partnership with them on how to actually deploy a model on their super app, which, currently their business super app has over 1 million downloads. And the way we were going to do it is like as an added value service to the small and medium enterprises. So they noticed while there was like a continuous growth in terms of use of mobile money across the country and across small and medium businesses, a lot of these small and medium enterprises still had a challenge with being able to, increase their revenue, understand with their customers, and work with the data. Previously, they had been offering a service where, using the app, and right now, I think they said there are about 625 million smartphones on the African continent. So that already tells you like there's a lot of people with smartphones, and, they've downloaded these apps. And, for the small businesses, what they do is they allow them to download a statement, and then the problem is like a lot of the small and medium enterprises don't have a lot of, data savviness and, knowing how to analyze this data. And so we built a tool, using OCR and now going towards having a small language model where they can actually just upload this PDF data, extract all the important information, show them who their customers are, how much each customer is contributing to them so that they know that if a customer drops off, I'm actually losing this amount of revenue. They start knowing how loyal the customers are because they know how often they're coming in. And the model now would be like they can have a conversational interaction as having a business assistant that can tell them, oh, this person is about to drop off. These are the strategies you could come up with. And so we also see other opportunities with edge machine learning and AI. So if you think about, a veterinary officer in the periphery, how can they have a model that runs on their device locally and they can take an image of an eye of a cow and then be able to tell, okay, could be the possible disease that's happening. And then you open it up to other use cases in healthcare, even for humans, being able to triage people. And so there's the opportunity now for edge now opens up to, a myriad of sectors, manufacturing, and a lot of other spaces.
Thank you, Mutembe. Michael, now you've been informed by both our other ecosystem enablers and the work that you do. We were talking about this earlier as well, that it's not possible to do everything yourself. So you need to find those right partnerships. In terms of working at the last mile, solving these complex problems for farmers in terms of financial inclusivity, input supplies, and developing more tools for them. How do you see the ecosystem shaping in Africa in terms of local startups working on deep tech solutions and not just last mile solutions? And do you see a partnership opportunity from the continent?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I'm already thinking about how I can get your custom version of 5.3. Do you use 5.3? 4 now. Oh, nice, awesome. Yeah, we can get that on one of our apps for our agents. But yes, what's happening in the African ecosystem with respect to AI is incredible. A lot of the local language translation models that we use, we initially actually even started off building out our own speech generation models at first, and then we realized if we wanted to go deeper into this would take us way beyond our core focus itself. And then we started discovering other startups and other young people actually building the solutions and putting it all together. And now it makes it a lot easier for you to say if you want to actually build a specific product powered by AI for the African continent at least, or for LMICs, the solutions or the building blocks or the pieces actually exist today, from the ASR models to small language models that you can put together and put into devices with low RAMs or low processing units. There's so many things that can happen now, and in our case, that's exactly what's happening with our products, where smarter farmers can now just make a phone call, and from a phone call on a device that doesn't have internet connectivity or doesn't have that's not a smartphone, a device that isn't smart at all, they can actually get the best, form of intelligence, stream directly into their ears, and they can actually interact with it. For our farmers today, our farmers are spending nearly 20 minutes on average every single day talking to their own personalized AI extension agent. And how that works is, they get back home from the farms, and late in the evening, they, call the number, put it on speaker, and they just, sit down on the table, like sit down with the phone on the table and just start talking to it. Sometimes they argue with the AI, say, yeah, no, I disagree with this. And then, we've trained the AI to be a lot more responsive around, things like that. And, the farmers come back the next day to say, oh, yes, you told me this yesterday, but, here's what I noticed. And then the AI, is automatically responding to it. And when you think about it with respect to, the profile of customers that you have, and even for the telcos too, most of the time the profile that everyone have of their customer base is a static profile. You know what their names are, you know where they are, you know what they do, but you don't know how that is changing. But with AI today, and especially as the customers interact with AI, the everyday interaction can give you, newer updates into the profile of the customer. You can know whether they've ventured into a new line of business or not, and how you can better support them. And just that dynamism is important to growing the entire economy itself.
Perfect. I was just thinking when you were talking about the work, and it really shows that all three of you, mobile technology is like a core part in terms of making sure that the solutions that you are developing are accessible. People can contribute. People can benefit, from the AI model through the use of it in terms of accessibility, and from your end as well, in terms of AI on edge devices is also an AI inclusive piece. This is a question to all of you. I would like to ask that how do you see what other areas of collaborations or partnership models with mobile network operators can support you achieve bigger scale, deeper impact? Starting with you, Bethlehem.
Mobile network operators play a huge role because we can only reach as much as they have reached in terms of our contributors, in terms of access to devices, device financing, and also network coverage, and even through the mobile money in terms of banking, not banking, but also having mobile wallets for people to get paid for their contribution. So there are layers to how much these MNOs can contribute, but unless that is the foundational element for us in terms of crowdsourcing the data and also distributing the services that will be built on top of the data that we'll be building. So they are a crucial component, and without collaboration, I don't think we can get these AI tools to these communities faster and in a pace that is going to be aligned with the speed of change that's happening throughout the world.
Would you like to add something?
Yeah, I think, mobile network operators are super important to the progress and the changes that will happen. Before, I think the conversation was around how MNOs used to be very close and very secretive with the data that they have, but I'm happy to start seeing that, a lot of things are they're more open with the data access now, working with the AI companies to, develop better models that will, of course, now improve their own businesses too. And end of the day, if we're, sticking with the theme of where we are right now, which is 4 years from now, what do we want to see? And it's that, the MNOs being as open as possible with the technology and the investments that they're making, which would then, create the right sort of foundation layer for the services and, players like us to develop further on top of that to reach the underserved, to reach the last mile. So 4 years from now, I want to see faster, models in tens of millions of devices. We want, tens of millions of farmers getting the latest advisory through Crop to Cash on their phones. And of course, you two have created multiple jobs, developing or, training the models that everybody's using in Africa.
Otembe, do you have any thoughts on this?
A small, I'll continue the trend of 4 years from now. But I think 4 years now, I would like to see MNOs in Africa, and globally, particularly in Africa, be like 2 or 3x their size because of how they were able to adopt AI, and particularly how they were able to adopt, now there'll probably be a billion phones on the continent, but how each and every one of these devices will actually be running very compressed or localized models for healthcare, for education, for financial inclusion, and a lot of these telcos will actually be providing added services because calls are going down, data usage needs to be the one that's going up. But what kind of extra services that really connect with people can these MNOs be able to provide, and how can this partnership with like startups, such as the ones here, be able to actually push that, create more jobs? On the African continent, we're going to have about 2 billion plus people by 2050. How do you create more jobs by them being able to actually access intelligence on their devices?
Thank you so much. I know we are short on time, but I would like to open up for questions and answers. If anyone has any questions from our panel, please.
Hi, thank you so much for your comments. My name is Eunice. I'm a co-founder of Ishango, and we outsource data science projects from Europe to African talent. I have 2 questions. I think the first one is for Bethlehem and Mutembe. When we talk about, you mentioned there's 80 plus languages just in Ethiopia. In Uganda, where I'm from, it's over 50 languages. Is it really possible at the pace that AI is moving for us to really customize these solutions for all these languages? What do you think is really going to happen to that? I know, Mutembe, you mentioned the potential of sort of small language models, but do they give us that depth and nuance at the same rate? Or are we looking at this from the historical perspective of we know, LLMs take huge amounts of data to train, and do you see that, sort of shifting? So that's my first question. My second one is for you, Michael. I know in Africa we do a lot around relationships, right? Being able to look somebody in the eye, ask them, even though you see your extension agent once a year, you ask how his children are and he asks about yours. How are you seeing that relationship focus being, translated in these AI agents, and what's happening with that, and how are you adapting or trying to incorporate that? Thank you very much.
Would you like to take the question on languages?
Yeah. To be honest, I wouldn't say the perfect answer for that, because the speed of change is really hard to catch up with. But unless these languages are documented, unless they're recorded, unless they're organized and kept, there's no other way around it. It's either this or waiting for the communities to be connected to the internet and for them to start creating the data and train on top of that, which I think will take even a much longer time. So, for example, our goal is to collect 50,000 hours of data in the next 2 years, and this is across just 5 languages, right? And this is basic languages, and on top of that, you'd have sector-specific data sets, like in healthcare and agriculture. So the crowdsourcing approach is also supposed to solve the speed of things instead of, doing a more centralized approach in terms of collecting the data. But yeah, time is of the essence, and we're definitely very conscious about that and how long it's going to take. Yeah.
I think to your question, I think DeepSeek started answering that question of whether, the paradigm is going to shift. And I think it's already happening. I think we just need more DeepSeek moments in Africa as well. And I think if you look at Andrew Ning, it's like sort of one of the fathers of what's happening like in the tech space in AI. He actually said the next era is actually going to be the one of small language models. Can distill a lot of the knowledge from the larger language models and then have for very specific use cases, especially as we're moving to agentic AI, right? You need a specialist, model, not just, the general, and you can distill most of the knowledge from the larger language models.
And yeah, to answer your question around, personal relationships being super important, especially in the African context. I think in our case, one of the first things that we needed to figure out was, how do we make this, as relatable as possible to our customers, our farmers, and we needed to, make sure our AI at least, speaks in a sort of, African accent that is, it doesn't sound robotic. It's something that, that they can, relate to, and having that alone made it a lot easier for the farmers to, or that increased the adoption in our case. But I mean, when we then, also think about what the potential future is like, sure, relationships are, there's the human connection today, but we've started seeing some examples in other, economies where relationships are now, becoming digital, and, we're having digital twins and all of that. I think that there is a chance to eventually leapfrog to that level, to the point where, as long as the benefits are like huge enough, then yeah, we're gonna see a lot of human-machine relationships starts developing, even on an agricultural or rural level.
Thank you. I think we have time for one last question, and then we have to wrap up. I've already been told.
Hello. I believe, all of you have mentioned talent as a key driver for development. And to what extent is it a problem that in your societies in the South, you train talent, and from the North, we take that talent? So is that a big problem? And how you can counteract or manage a local source of talent that could be sustainable?
Thank you for that question. I think Bethlehem is well placed to answer that, and she has a very good answer in the strategy that she's building. Over to you.
So just to give you some sort of context, majority, I would say 80%, 90% of the people that have actually come to work at our company are now abroad, working for other companies or doing remote jobs. So what we do is, at least every quarter, we bring in 100 interns into the company. And this is in collaboration with multiple universities across Ethiopia. And from 100 of those young people, maybe we will have 1 or 2 joining the company and continuing to work within the company. So one, it starts with the quality of the talent that's coming out of the universities, which takes us a lot of investment to train. And once we train them, in terms of the demand that is, available, and because of the rise of remote jobs, we lose a lot of these young people. So also why we started initially to actually train young people, starting from primary school to universities, is to increase the talent pool that we have to choose from, because we are actually in competition with other companies trying to hire for AI talent. So just to give you a bit of a perspective on that.
So quick reply to that, and I see you're wearing a Kenyan bracelet, so it's good to see that. I just, one answer. We need more capital for African startups, because you're competing in a global talent pool, and you cannot restrict like migration and movement of talent to where it's needed. So more capital for African startups, plain.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us today for this session. I hope it has been as insightful for you as it has been for us. Please enjoy the rest of your MWC experience. Thank you. You guys are so cool.